Hello and welcome everyone to this month's, I guess, I don't know, to the latest version of There and Back Again with me, Orion. We have a lot to get to today because there have been a lot of questions that have been coming out with regards to the new expansion that we're going to be releasing very soon. There's been many questions coming in on the forums, and I know that there's going to be plenty of questions coming in during the stream, so I'm here to do my best to answer everything I possibly can and give you the lowdown of what's coming up, what we're looking to do, what we're planning on, and how things will move forward into the future. Keep the questions coming in chat. I'll be looking, and I'm sure that the mods will be helping me out as best I can to try to highlight what is there and what is not. Oh, good. You can hear me. That's fantastic. It's not quiet. This is great. Yeah, usually there's music. I don't have all the music set up that Cord has, so it's a little bit less technical and whatever. Apologies. So yeah, we have in what is probably not super long from now, right? The release of Legacy of Morgoth coming. We've already opened up the Bull Roarer for it, and you've been enjoying it and playing it and giving us good feedback. You're seeing the changes that we're making to the elves. You're seeing some of the landscapes that we've created. You're playing through the content. And from the looks of it, it appears as though we're having a good time, which is fantastic. We're all looking forward to getting this out the door. And we're all in the final stages of getting everything done. It's been quite a slog, and we're really excited about where we are and how close we are to release at this point. So, yeah, with that out of the way, let's go over some particulars. At the beginning of the year, we put out our roadmap, and obviously our roadmap didn't end up happening the way that we expected to, which is pretty standard for how roadmaps are. They're guideposts, they're guidelines, they're things that we really want to get done, they're things that we're really hoping to be able to accomplish. And then reality sets in and you're not able to hit everything that you really are looking for. And, as a result this year, of some things that were going on in the background, some of the efforts that we had to push off, unfortunately, were things that were on our roadmap. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the level downscaling system that was discussed earlier this year. And what ended up happening with that is when we started to look at the back end of it and how difficult it was going to be to implement, we realized that there were some other pieces that were still kind of blocking us from being able to do it. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in the future. It's something that we're still looking at very seriously because we know that there is a desire for to be able to go back and play with friends, to work with kinships or work with newer players from the elder player base that exists. And I think part of the reason why that ended up getting pushed is because the more we looked at it, the more we thought and expect that it will have a bigger impact when we do most of the rework for the kinship system. The kinship system is something that is still, again, it's not behind me, obviously, but we do have a virtual whiteboard where we keep almost everything that we're working on. And the kinship system is something that we definitely want to get to. A lot of the ideas that are included in what the kinship system would be come directly from you, the players, and things that you have suggested in the past. Now, there are some enhancements, obviously, with that we're looking for to really improve on what we can do and what we can offer and make the kinship a more vibrant part of the experience. So we want to take the time to really get that done. So when we looked at that and said the level downscaling system would probably have more impact if it was tied into the kinship system, we figured it was going to be a little bit larger than we were going to be able to tackle in a single year effort. So we ended up pushing both off until we can spend some more time with them. Doesn't mean that they're gone, just means that they're delayed a little bit. Excuse me, just one second. Had to take a quick drink. All right, so one of the next things that was asked about was the Hunter rework and Hunter class rework in general. We certainly had worked on the Lore Master this year with mixed reviews. Obviously, there are some people that are really enjoying it and some people who are not. And we are continuing to look at the classes as we continue through the game. Guardian saw its refresh last year. Hunter was supposed to see a refresh last year. We did see some measure of the update to the Bjorning as well. There's a constant effort to try to update and refresh and keep interesting all the different classes, and to get them to a point where we feel better about how all the classes function in their different roles. And there are different roles for the classes, and we want to make sure that every role can play out DPS so that there's a good way for them, a good way for the class to be able to play through the game when they have to, or where they want to play solo and be able to tackle the content on their own. So part of that effort is to make sure that the DPS abilities for each of the classes has enough staying power or eliminating power that they can go out there and DPS along the way. But then there, of course, is the specialty line for each of the classes that really highlights what they do. And then you have the Burglar, which is kind of all a mix of DPS and specialty altogether. So the classes are going through, and they'll continue to go through an ongoing restructure and rework. It's just a matter of being able to get through them and get to the time to really spend on fixing them and getting them to the point that they need to be. So we are not doing any major overhauls to the classes in this update or in the first update of 2025, but very likely we'll be able to spend some time on probably Hunter, and Burglar is also another one that we have looked at and said we really probably need to do something for Burglar too. Behind that would be Champion, and then we would look at others and see what we can do to tweak and make some other changes to them and make them more relevant. Let's see. All right, so another big thing that's been going on. We released our legendary servers, Moria and Angmar. Moria, obviously, in Europe, Angmar here in the United States. Both of those have been very well received. The architecture that they're built on is proving as solid as we had hoped. And I think the Veil of Nine aspect that has been introduced has been very well received as well. There are some changes that we're planning for Moria, and Moria will be coming out before the end of this year. So what we're planning on doing is releasing the expansion pack sometime soon, our trademark soon, but sometime soon. And then between the end of the year and the release of the expansion pack, we're going to be taking Moria and moving it onto the legendary servers. So the legendary servers will move up to Moria. Right now, we have a tentative date planned for the very beginning of December. And with that will be some measure of adjustment to the endgame content that is inside of Moria. It's not a complete restructuring where we're putting the tiered system for instances into the spaces, but we are spending some time to make sure that they're balanced and trying to adjust some of the gear in there so that it makes more sense and is more relevant to the level cap that you'll be at when you get into the Moria area of the game. More drinking, sorry. So I think that's actually pretty exciting news. Being able to move to Moria and get the legendary servers there, and then throw in a little something different inside of Moria, because the Ringwraiths wouldn't really spend a lot of time hanging out in the depths of Moria, so there might be some changes coming to what's available inside of there and what you might see as the foil while you're on landscape and moving along the storyline of Moria. Now, there are some changes coming to the way that the big Wraith events, the big Ringwraith events are happening right now on Mordor and Angmar. Vastin is hard at work right now, coming up with a new system that will allow you to enter into a space that is governed, that governs the amount of people that can be there, so that you don't have to worry about the way that it's been. So we can mitigate the way that it's been generated on landscape right now. So instead of it being a situation where the Ringwraith appears in a random spot in the world, and then everybody can rush there, it will be moved into a public instance space where up to a number of people will be able to fight it, and every single time that there's enough people, we'll open up another instance of that where you can continue to fight against the ring raids as we continue forward. So that is going to be a pretty large change that should mitigate a lot of the difficulty that we've been seeing and a lot of the negativity that's been coming from those particular events when there are too many people that are trying to engage the ring wraith at one time, and it ends up in a situation where the server starts to struggle a little bit and things get a little more difficult to complete and accomplish and keep track of. So we're hoping to have that out sometime before the legendary servers move up to the Moria release, but we're still kind of working on it and making sure that it's available. I believe we're going to be trying to get that out on a bull roar very soon so we can see how it works. Okay, so what's next? Well, let's go back to the forums and see what else has been talked about. Someone was asking about Rivendell housing and other premium housings that are coming in. We're not actually talking about anything there yet. There's nothing really slated for the immediate future on that. We have been working on something in the background for the housing, for premium housing, but it's not ready at this point. And if we move on to one of the other things that's been asked about, the changes that we're making to group content in the traditional game and in the way that, the normal servers right now, we are working on changing the tier system out. And when I see a 4-tier system, it is a 4-tier system from our standpoint, right? We have what we're going to be doing for our solo duo, or story is basically what we really kind of term that as. This is the story aspect of an instance, whether it's a 6-man or a raid. Sorry, it's not really a story raid. There's still lower tier for the raid. But there's going to be 3 tiers, full real tiers of the experience now, where there's what is a particularly easier way of doing things, and then the traditional way, and then the hard mode, or however you would say it. The mechanics will change, the difficulty of the mobs will change, and it will follow very much the same structure that the previous tiers had. It will just be a little streamlined and a little bit lower, making it easier for us to parse and probably easier for you to see exactly how difficult it would be. We're hoping that that's going to be something a little more tenable as we move forward. And along those lines, we are still on track to have the 3-man and at least one of the 6-mans, and very likely both of the 6-mans ready for the release of Legacy of Morgoth. 2 of them are currently in testing, and 1 is coming online very soon for testing. And let's see. Let's hop into the chat here and see what folks are asking about. So, when are Bjornings going to get their final polish? So Bjornings are there's a lot of interesting things going on with Bjornings, right? So one of the things I would love to be able to eliminate is the switching back and forth between bear and human form when you have to interact with objects. Part of the problem is that the animation sets don't necessarily work the right way with the objects that you interact with in the world. So we have to kind of fix that. And there are other aspects of the class with the changes that were made last year that probably still need some tweaking. And those are things that will be on the overall changes that we have to make to classes as we continue forward. I saw your note there, Nizumel, about the reputation and allegiance carryalls. I guess we can go into a little bit about the reputation pieces that we're working on. So there's been, we announced, I guess, at the beginning of the Bull Roar cycle, the inclusion of the new reputation piece for VIPs, where if you are a VIP and you have the new expansion pack, only because the 3 reputations that have this new feature are the ones that are being used for this new set. Once you reach Frontier for reputation with one of your characters, then all of your other characters on that server will earn a bonus towards their reputation, towards that faction reputation, until they reach the friend tier. And then once another character reaches the kindred tier, there'll be another bonus that's applied. Now, initially we had said, I had said that the initial draft was 5% and 10%. We're looking at your feedback, and we think that it's probably a better solution to push for a 10% for that first breakpoint, and then a 25% for the second breakpoint, as the bonuses that you'll get for completing or advancing the reputations on a single character. So the first character that you move up will allow your other characters to catch up a little quicker. So the level ups that Sev discussed on the forums, this is another question. Why are we creating two separate versions? The reason that we're creating two separate versions is because they are the value that we have, that we expect that these will have, is for a player that has been around for a long time, who just wants to experience everything at the top end, or wants to experience the content that's available inside of the expansion pack, but not necessarily wants to concern themselves with building out a fully advanced legendary item, or the full advanced virtues that are necessary to participate in the high-end content and raid areas, but just wants to kind of play on the landscape and experience the story, would be able to do so with the minor level up piece. So that's why that was created alongside the Volars that are still allowing for the standard way that we have been doing that for a long time, enabling you to get back up and catch up to players who are at near the top end. There was a question on when the 64-bit servers will be moving to, or when we'll be moving the traditional worlds to 64-bit servers. We are still working on that and identifying when the best time to handle that change would be. We'll probably be making some more announcements about that as we get closer to the end of the year, or potentially even in the new year. There's still some back-end work that we have to look at, and we have to make sure that everything is actually in place before we make that adjustment. Let's see. Question about creeps. Interesting. Can one of the creep classes get a cure bleed spell? The pots we have are just not very good. So there's there are some changes that we're looking to do specifically on the creep side that we just haven't had the opportunity to get to. So we are looking for a time frame at some point, very likely next year at this point, to make some more adjustments to monster play beyond what we are currently doing for the expansion. Grokil asks whether there'll be a roadmap for future expansions for the legendary servers. That's a really good question. We don't have the exact timeline of when everything will be coming out at this point. We have a skeletal structure of where we want to release the different pieces, but there are some discussions internally of whether or not we advance more quickly by some of the expansions rather than others. Specifically, we do have a question of whether or not we are going to, how we're going to handle things like Rohan, the big battle system, and then as we move to Mordor, because in the traditional servers, we stayed at some of those level bands for a very long period of time, or the content was played in such a different manner that we wanted to look, we want to look to see if there's ways that we can kind of mitigate some of the difficulties that have been traditionally apparent when we get to those different breakpoints. So we haven't set any of that in stone. We just know that for certain, Moria will be moving onto the legendary servers before the end of the year. Let's see. When will there be a second season for the Creep Reward track? That's a good question. So I think what we're planning on doing at this point is when we get into 2025, I think we were looking to put out a more traditional reward track for the monster players, if possible, if it fits in our time frame, that would run alongside the LI track and be available for the same amount of time, so that there's that measure of consistency for when you can gain the rewards that are associated there. Let's see. Anything on the whiteboard about adding previous reward track exclusive items, pets, decos to a figment, or barter next year? So we have talked about that internally. There are certainly some pieces that very likely were missed out on over time that the players probably are looking to get, and we are very likely going to start looking at bringing some of those items back. The problem with doing something like that is overstepping and not addressing what we really should address with each of those, and maybe putting too much of the old things back in. There's some discussions that we have to have in order to figure out where those work. I am a much bigger fan of anything that was missed during the reward track being something that you could trade for inside of the game for currency that you earn inside of the game. And then there are other aspects that are like, we should bring them back and put them onto the reward tracks at a later time. I just think that might reduce the overall value of the specific tracks. But there's still ongoing discussions, which is why you haven't seen anything come back at this point yet, because we're still working on it. Let's see. Let's go back to the forums for a second and see if there's anything that I haven't touched on. Yes, there was a question from Rose Finch on the Further Adventures. So Further Adventures, we were just talking about this the other day. Not because it was posted by Rose Finch, but because we missed it. It was one of the things that ended up getting pushed out from the 2024 effort, just because of everything else that was going on around us. So we do want to return to the Further Adventures. It won't always be with the same characters, and there are some characters that we're introducing with the Legacy of Morgoth who play really nicely into the feel of what the Further Adventures are. So it's entirely possible that there'll be new friends and adventurers that you'll be moving along with as we continue to expand upon the game. Let's see. Oh, a question on legendary lag fixes that was asked. There have been a bundle of updates and features that have been fixed on the back end, and we don't really talk about a lot of the back end changes that have been happening, because they just don't have any real direct impact on the moment to moment gameplay. So we don't always put those release bits out if it has something to do with like the time that it would take an AI to make a decision, so on and so forth, because it's not something that should be probably talked about or perceived in a way that would be anything more than, oh, this got better, and it's usually too technical in the way that it's actually fixed to really be of merit to explain all of the details to you. But there have been some things that have been changed for the way that the mobs have been timed out on the back end. And yes, the preloading of data onto the 64-bit servers, if you have played on Angmar or Mordor, you know that those two servers perform better, which is why there is a push for us to move to the 64-bit servers on the normal worlds. And we really are trying to get all of those ducks in a row before we can get those out the door. All right. So yes, 3-mans will end up having the tier 3 dungeons. The 3 tiers, 3 bonus tiers beyond the first for difficulty. And the same is going to be there for the raid. Speaking of the raid, so it looks like On and Scenario the other day let the cat out of the bag that our raid is planned for, that the raid is planned for 6 bosses in 3 wings. It's something that we haven't done in a while, and it's something that we want to get back to, is a more regular pattern of the raids having multiple bosses, multiple encounters that offer major differences for each of those experiences. We've got some pretty fun ideas that we're working on. And, you know, we've got a couple of new faces that have come on board that are helping us to kind of freshen things up and make them a little more modern in the way that we are approaching them. So we're really excited about where we're headed with that. And I think anyone who is in the beta right now and playing inside of the 3-player instance that we've already put up on the Bill Roar will see that there have been some changes there. Certainly on the tier 3, and that it's a little harder than it has been before, I think. And that's where we're kind of heading for that as we continue to move forward with the game. So let's go back to the stream and see the questions here. We've got a question from Eros216 about whether we would be willing to consider updating the skirmish system. There's a lot that has to change with the skirmish system in order to kind of bring it into a modern fold. So one of the things I think that Scenario and I are going to talk about in our next We Have a Cave Troll stream is we haven't really solidified what it is we're going to discuss, because it's going to be coming out right around the time that the expansion is out there, and we know that there's probably going to be a lot of questions on the expansion during that time. But one of the things that we're trying to do now is figure out how to better handle a lot of our barter currencies in the game, and the way that we are putting them before you, and kind of fix a lot of the broken pieces that are there. Skirmishes and skirmish marks are still given out on raids at this point, and frankly, there's nothing to do with them, right? The skirmish system for the most part ends at a certain level and hasn't really been touched since. Yeah, we've added a couple of new skirmishes along the way, but that does not mean that the reward structures that are really in there are as good as they used to be. And part of the difficulty that we have is with our statistics, the way that they are set up inside of the game. It's very easy for players to get to our modified or our visible statistical top end sooner than we really, not sooner than, but it's really easy for you to cap a lot of that stuff fast. And then everything else is a lot of gravy that's on top, and makes it it makes it more, makes it easier for you to do a lot of the content that's there. But we have this middle ground where those middle portions of the game, where skirmishes used to really help out, don't help out as much as they used to. And we want to find a way to address that. We want to find a way to make sure that there are multiple ways to level and enjoy the game, and to enhance your characters along the way. But we also know that that is not everything for everybody inside of the game world, right? So some players are still here primarily because they just want to exist inside of the Middle-earth world. And we don't want to force, any play style in anyone. Everybody should be able to play the game the way that they want to. So I'm rambling at this point. But the long and short is that skirmishes we want to get to the skirmish system, but it's behind so much else that we think we need to address before we get to it, that I don't see it being something we look at certainly in 2025, maybe not even in 2026. We don't know, though, because things can always change. Can we get more housing, item furnitures in the store so we can have nicer houses? Okay, so one of the things, or one of the changes to the reputation rewards that we're looking for, we're looking to do inside of the expansion pack, is to present you with more reward options for advancing through the reputation system, or the reputations as you're moving along. So for the Legacy of Morgoth, and I will go into making them more available, or making more furniture available in a second. But in Legacy of Morgoth, every time through most of the advancement inside of the different reputation factions that are available, you're going to be given an option of rewards. Whether that is one of our new Bobbles, or it's a housing decoration, or something else that's available to you, you're going to get one of those rewards up front, and you'll be able to choose from between 3 and 4 of those different items that you want, and then the others will move to the barter, so you can barter for them. It's just I think a more modern way of doing things. It's a better way of kind of saying, hey, thanks for helping us out from the faction standpoint, and gives you more impetus to go in and see the other rewards that have now become available to you. So that's one of the changes we're making with Reputation, to make the reward set a little bit broader and more obvious, and a little bit more for what you actually put into the effort to enhance your reputation. The question about whether or not we can put more of the furniture on stores, I think that's definitely going to end up happening at some point, mostly because it seems like there's a demand for it. And we've done, and I don't know if Scenario touched on this the other day, or if he's going to touch on it on Saturday in his stream that he's got with VOTR, is that we know that housing is a really important part of the game, and we really want players to be able to personalize and make their houses what they really want them to be. So I would say that, yes, there's probably going to be an opportunity for stores for more of the furnitures and home furnishings inside of the game to be available in the store at some point in the future. I don't know when that's going to be. I know that we are working on ways that we can start taking a lot of the pieces that are currently separated and make them more modular, and to turn them into bigger set pieces than they currently are. Things like being able to put a stack of books on a table, things like that. It's just a matter of when, how, if, and resourcing to get it done. There was another question from Titan Metal on when will the game engine be modified? When will the optimization be? So the game engine, we're not planning on updating or changing anything with the game engine. The game engine is what it is. There's no current plans right now to make any changes with that. There are optimization efforts that are underway. I don't want to tease out too much, but we have a quality of life update coming out, and that doesn't mean that there won't be other things inside of the quality of life update. But there are a couple of new enhancements or revisions, reimagining of certainly one of the major UIs in the game, to make it more streamlined, more modern, more readable, I think is the right way to say it, because we have a lot of older UIs, and we're trying to go through them and work on them as we can. We just don't have it in the cards right now to be able to do a massive overhaul of the engine and the UI in the game, or the optimization effort that I think you're asking for in this particular question. So we're doing everything we can to adjust smaller pieces along the way, so when we ultimately get through this on that initial pass, things are brought up to a more modern space, and then we can start to revise after that. Any crafting information? Okay, so this one is always tough for me to deal with, because I really, really wanted to get the crafting to do what I wanted the crafting to do. I really wanted to make it so you didn't need to go through all the other tiers to get the new one, but the game has that baked in. And when we tried to pull it apart, it was like playing Jenga and pulling all the bottom pieces at once. It sucked. It was one of the hardest things that I had to swallow since coming back. And part of that is the multiple node tracking. Now, that is a lower bar to clear than the complete removal of the gating for the different tiers of crafting. So you might have noticed, if you play Monster Play, that there was an adjustment made, or an addition made, for Glory Seekers. That is giving us some more flexibility in the way that we can track inside of the game. And it gets us a step closer to being able to track multiple nodes at the same time, but doesn't quite get us all the way there. So what we're looking for at this point is that next push. It's not dead yet. I'm still pushing for it. It's just been moved down the board a little bit, because there are higher items from an engineering standpoint that need to come in before that. So hopefully, we're going to be able to get that at some point in the not so distant future, because I really do think that it would benefit everyone that is a crafter, and particularly as an explorer type crafter, to be able to track multiple nodes at once. Okay. Let's see. Am I the boss of the Lotro company? No, I am not. I am just I'm just the lead designer on it right now. I'm the person that you can point fingers at and yell at all you want. Okay, so let's see. Let's move on and see if there's any other questions here. New wardrobe slots in the near future. I think that's something we're looking at. I think that's something that we're actually really trying to do more of. There was a question on Bobbles on the forums. If you threw away an item that was a firework for an anniversary present, and it ends up going into the new Bobbles collection, will it still be unlocked there? No, you'll have to have anything that would move into the Bobbles collection panel that was previously earned. If you no longer have it, it won't count. You'll have to get the old one in order to move it over. There are some things that will not move directly into Bobbles. Anything currently that is a consumable item, where you have to have the item in your inventory and it becomes consumed when you use it, so there are multiple fireworks that are like this, those will not move directly into the Bobbles panel yet. We do want to find a way to make the Bobbles that do have consumables have like a sub panel where you can put the consumable in, so you can use it at the number of times that you have the consumable available. It's just not going to be available in the very short term. We're only focusing on things that are usable but not consumed. So they're very much like a secondary skill set. Or a mount is another good way to look at it. I think at last count we had somewhere around 40 to 50 baubles that were moved over from existing, from taking up an actual slot inside of your inventory, and then a good number of new baubles that have been created that will be given out as quest rewards or reputation rewards or other rewards or things you can purchase inside of the game for the expansion pack. Let's see. Yeah, so so anyone who doesn't know what the baubles are just that. They're just doodads, gizmos, toys, things that you can play around with and use in short cycles. We were talking just the other day, it's not going to be in yet, but we were talking about potentially letting you make yourself it, so you can make other people it and pass it around and just be able to play games like that. A little more, a little more flavor that you can have inside of the world. There's the first one that is really kind of a departure is the I don't think we called it the hookah, but it's based off of a traditional hookah, where you can put it on the ground, and I think it's up to 3 other players can use that and smoke from the hookah itself. I think that was one of the pre-order items that we created, and that was kind of the driving factor behind it. You may have noticed that there's been a little more with the introduction of birding, and now the introduction of baubles, that the collection panel has been getting a little more attention. There's a reason for that, and we're going to continuously try to use the collections as a better way to handle some of the more cumbersome itemization and things that we have inside of the game, where we can make those available. So don't be surprised if at some point in the future there are more options that are available inside of the collection panels. Let's see. Any UI updates? So we're continuing to work on it. There was a question on the forums about full PvP. There will never be. This is one of the things I'm confident about saying very definitively. There will never be true PvP in the game. The license does not support it. It is not meant to be an elf walks up and stabs a hobbit, or a hobbit walks up and stabs an elf. That you can spar. That is as far as that will likely ever go. there's no ifs, ands, or buts that we're talking about here for that. It looks like I've almost exhausted everything there. So let's move over back to the stream and see what we've got. Why can you only play 5 creep classes when a creep if you want to play a 50? Creeps are a little different. They are individual characters, and there's no way to make multiple versions of those. Their advancement is very structured. It's very rigid. You're not going to be able to get a lot of variation. We are working on some variety in what they do, but you're not ever going to end up in a situation with them, with the way that they were constructed, that they would advance like a normal character would. So that's why you don't have as many options for them. Plus, they only exist in one area of the world, and they can't really step out of that, so it wouldn't make much sense to have as wide a breadth of those characters. When can we expect the High Elf Avatar update? So it's going to happen later. The reason for the difference in them is that they are built off of different structural rigs on the back end. So they're not the same. They do have a different animation set. They do have a different bone structure for the characters themselves. So they had to be done independently of the elf. That's why it's been delayed a little bit, because it's going to take a little more time for all of that to get done. Let's see. Race traits are somewhat awful. We don't disagree. We're looking at a lot of the older game systems, a lot of the old systemic pieces of the game that have really started to show their age, and we're trying to figure out how to I shouldn't say trying to figure out. We're setting plans up to make more modifications and modernize the way that some of these things work together or can be expanded on. It's, again, one of those things where it really comes down to having the time to focus on those aspects and focus on the things that we think would really be beneficial on the whole. So when we look at the racial traits, they were never meant to be anything that's a major boon for a character, but they are meant to be kind of that qualifier for this is something nifty that you get for this race. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as a potential change for the future, but not in the short term. Let's see. Since I have a lightsaber in the background, can you confirm if you are a light side or dark side player? Don't mix them just because I have that in the background. Yes, I can be a Star Wars fan, but I'm more a Star Trek fan, I think, than I am a Star Wars fan. If I were, I would probably be dark side. I'd probably be dark side, to be honest. So how do you upgrade to the latest expansion? Well, right now, to upgrade to the latest expansion, you would have to go through one of our pre-order purchases. It will, of course, as we normally do, make it available for Lotro points at some time later in the future. Do you plan on splitting the movement emotes into walking and running emotes so we can mix them up? Oh, not quite sure I understand what that question is. I mean, if it's related to, because you can always switch between running and walking, but if there's Green Tea, if you could kind of clarify what you mean by that, because I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're saying by the different emotes, unless you're talking about some that we currently have where you have to be running to use them. But yeah, let's circle back on that one. Can we window for future horses so we can see? Oh, yeah. So Epic TV is asking, can we get a preview window for furniture and horses so we can see what they look like? We'll have to look at whether or not that's possible. It may be possible. That sounds like a really good quality of life thing to potentially look at in the future. Will the new reputation system reward system apply to existing reputations or just the new ones? At first, the change to the reputation system for VIPs will only affect the 3 new reputations. That doesn't mean we will not backport them to other portions of the game. I'm looking at the final iteration of how this was structured now, and it's possible that as part of the quality of life update, we would make some of that available to the past as well. I think it would behoove us to put that in specifically because we do have the legendary servers right now, and that would be something I think that a lot of players on the legendary servers would also benefit from. All right, I'm going through. Costumes would be Bobbles. Yes, costumes in the future would very likely be Bobbles because they are something you use. They last for a period of time, and then it would go away. Putting the freeze tag fields into Bobbles. Well, no, not the freeze tag one, Druids. It would just be it. So it'd be just like playing it where you tag somebody and they become it, and then you would run away from them, or they'd run after you, things like that. Let's see. Yes, I think that the Valar bits are going to be going out as soon as they are ready. I think it's coming soon-ish. I can't remember the exact timeline that's actually happening on. I apologize. I'm sure that sometime early next week that we'll be able to tell you exactly what that is. Any plans for adjusting the unused stats in the game? Avoidances, crit defense. They're not unused. They're just not as beneficial as they could potentially be, and we are looking at them. When is the Delving of Frore reopening? Not for a little while. Not for a little while yet. Can creeps get trait presets so you don't have to change them as often as you have by hand? Not anytime in the near future. When will a new card for pvmp be opened? I want to fight in Mordor and Angmar. That's probably not going to happen given the way that they're balanced. Because the way that monster players are built, they have definitive modifiers for the level band that the main servers are at. So it's not really viable for us to turn on the monster play for those servers until we have a solution that enables us to dynamically change that on a given server type. There may be ways to do it, but it's not something that is like immediately. It's not easy. It would take some effort, and there are frankly higher priority things priority items that are out there for us to do. Oh, will the Luckstone system and Umbar crafting be used in Legacy of Morgoth? Okay, so this is what I wanted to discuss a little bit about crafting. And I totally get off the train of thought because I do that a lot. Because of the way that crafting ended up unfolding for the Umbar release, and because we aren't able to really dig in and extricate the existing system in the manner that we want, we're very likely going to end up moving to a more trade up style way of doing it. So yes, Luckstones will still have a purpose moving forward. They'll continue to be a measure of currency that's used to upgrade the materials that you have, but instead of going through the meticulous way that we do it right now with the crafting system as it was introduced with Umbar, there'll be more of collect these items with the major item, with the item that you want to upgrade, and trade those in. A lot of that is just based on there's no easy way for us with the way that the crafting system was structured at the outset to create a new UI that enables you to just craft the things that you want to without having it tied to an existing craft profession. That's a really weird way to say it, but it's true. It's like this, it's just this gnarly bit of code that said it has to be this rigid, it has to be this structured, it can't stray outside of this. So in order to change it to the way that we wanted it to work, we would have had to burn everything down and rebuild it from scratch, and that's just not something that's possible for us right now. Let's see. The whimsical. So Mandalore was trying to correct the question about the uh, the walk emote, about whether or not you do the walk and the uh, run for the different and special new animation styles that we've actually put into the game. That's a question I can follow up on. It's not something that I can answer because I'm not one of the art team. The art team would really have to be the ones to give us the answer for that, and I just don't know off the top of my head. So I'll take a look and see if I can get you the answer, and potentially post it on the forums at some point. Do I have any new thoughts on mounted combat? Nope. I I want to revisit mounted combat when we have a solid way to fix it. And when I say fix it, I want to make it better and not as cumbersome as it really is. And I know that there are a few players out there that really enjoy the way that the mounted combat system works, but there's enough that is broken with it that we really need to. If we were to fix that system, that is a system that we would need to not burn down, but kind of go around. We'd have to build around it. We'd have to make something different than the way it currently works. Let's see. Question that I didn't see a question from you. Sorry, I didn't see it. Any plans to rework the group finder? So there was a question that came up about that not that long ago. I think that was when I was talking to Baggins. The way that the group finder works right now, if we were doing anything, I think we'd want to bring it back to the way that it was kind of before. We don't have any direct plans on doing it right now. Can we make mariners for normal elves with the avatar update? No, we're not doing that, actually. The mariner class was built with the races that have it available in mind, based off of mostly the lore aspect of it. But at this point, we're not going to be moving the elf mariner onto elf right now. Let's see. Are there plans to rebalance the legendary server content on Angmar and Mordor? So as I said, there's some effort being done to update certainly the end game aspect of Mordor and Angmar when we move the expansion to Moria. Is it going to be a full reimagining and level setting so that it is perfect? Not likely, but there have been efforts to make it so that it is more challenging and more difficult, and more indicative of what it meant to play Moria at the time when it originally came out. And excuse me again. Can I talk a little bit about the quality of life update? No, we're at the end of the chat. Good. Can we talk a little bit about it? Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it. So we have a number of long-standing issues and bugs that we've looked at and requests that have come in from the player base over the years. And what we're trying to do is earmark the things that will have hopefully the most impact for the player base and us to clear some of the things that have just been long-standing issues that we really need to address. Now, not everything is going to be a really clear and obvious thing for the players, but it might be things that kind of help on the back end. It's going to be a little smaller than it will be in future years because there's some wrap-up pieces that we have to do for the remainder of this year. But next year, things are going to be a lot better and tighter in the way that we're doing things. I think what we're going to end up doing next year for the roadmap is, instead of putting out the full year, we'll probably go in quarterly increments to let you know what's coming up in the first quarter, then the second, then the third, so on and so forth. Mostly because this year I felt terrible that we didn't give you updates across the year. When we got down to the time when the expansion was going to release, and there were a number of posts that were coming out about where we were at, what we had missed, so on and so forth. I'm personally, I feel really responsible for that, because we should have come back out and said, hey, these are the things we're missing. Here's the reasons why. And I think we can do a better job of explaining that as we're moving along. So I think if we move to a quarterly set, or if we do, the year, but then we make the updates quarterly, that's probably the better way to do it, right? This is where we want to go. This is where we are, so that we can update those as we move along. But the quality of life update right now will tackle some work that will have a direct impact and direct visibility to you, and some that will probably be on the back end that should make your lives a little bit better. But they're mostly things that are long-standing bugs, or just requests that have continuously bubbled up over the years that need to be addressed. So hopefully it'll be that. Will it be a little bit of adjustment to tooltips and things like that? Yeah, that's some of the bugs that are out there. Is it UI changes? No, it's not major UI changes. But there are a lot of small and incremental bits that we can look at and we can address and we can make better for you. And we're trying to get some of those things taken care of in the coming months. So we're busy. Why does it take so long to adjust creeps? Okay. I've been very clear about the status of Monster Play and the rest of the game world itself. We don't have a massive monster player group, right? We do have a very dedicated monster player group. And personally, I love the monster players, and I know that On loves the monster players, and we wish that we could do everything that we really want to do for them. On and I talk very often about how great would it be if we just had 3 months to focus only on monster play, to fix the things that we want to give you the update that we wanted to give you over the summer. But we just don't have the people right now to be able to address that. So why does it take us so long? Because we share so many of the different responsibilities, and we have so many other deliverables and expectations that we have to address, or that we have to build, or we have to make, or we have to get out there into the world. And then, anything that's happening that is just expected of us internally. Like there are other priorities, higher priorities that take precedence, excuse me again, that make it so that we can't get to everything that we want to or need to get to. And unfortunately, Monster Play is one of those areas that tends to suffer the most, because it is not a main thoroughfare of the game. It's not something that a lot of people are hyper engaged in. And so we tend to let that aspect of the game not update that aspect of the game as quickly as we will others. We want to do it. It's just a matter of finding ways to get the time to do it. Any graphical blah, 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 landscape changes. There might be some things. Like other things that we're looking at is, I think it's still on the board. I probably shouldn't say it because I'm sure one of my team will yell at me after this, but I think we're looking at expanding and fixing some of the pieces that were released with birding this year, so that we can have another zone with birding, and also get a way to display the visual bird inside of the world in a fashion. Would it be possible to update the old deprecated allies to appraise into current tier items? We don't have any plans for that right now. Is it possible to comment right now on whether any aspect of the kinship refresh that is something the team wants to do has anything to do with housing? Yes, I can definitely say that. Kinship. So the things that we're looking at with the kinship refresh are they're enhancements that are for the benefit of the kin and the kin working together to advance. One of my I don't want to call it a peeve, because it's not a pet peeve. It's one of the things that I've always been, that I was disappointed in when we first launched the game and we tied kinship advancement behind a time gate rather than making it another advancement system, was always kind of sad to me, because your kinship, and especially in a game like in any MMO, but in Lord of the Rings, it feels more profound, and we kind of want to take a step in that direction and make it so that your kinship is more of that familial unit that you want to spend that time with. And I talk to a lot of kinship leaders. You may not know that I'm talking to you, but I do talk to a lot of kinship leaders. I'm in a few kins on the live servers, and one of the things that comes up a lot is that there is a growing divide between the way that kins work, and it's getting harder for the kins to keep newer people or to keep a lot of their old time players, because they're getting into the more to use the nomenclature of the day, of the times, sweaty type play, right? So the higher raid guilds, the streaming raiders who are trying to go out there and build or beat the raids as quickly as they can. It's kind of fracturing some of the older guilds that are still around. Kinships that are still around. So we're trying to adjust that and find a way that we can make all that work. And yes, we are definitely looking at some of the way that kinships are handled with housing. There's definitely ties there. Scooter Rick, that's a silly question. What color bell pepper is my favorite? It's actually yellow. Let's see. Your roadmap is to be, yes, Harvane. I think the roadmap would be helpful. Like I said, I think what we're going to end up doing is we'll do the year-long one, and then we'll probably break it down into the incremental quarters just to see things, how they're actually coming along. So we're at the end of the hour. I'm really looking forward to everything that we're doing, and Legacy of Morgoth is really shaping up, and it looks really good, and we're really excited about it. We hope you are too. And, thanks for spending an hour with me. And if there's any other questions that you have, feel free to visit the forums. I think that Cord has mentioned that DDO got its own Discord a little while ago. So you can expect that at some point Lotrol will be getting its own Discord too. So we're probably going to be looking at that at some point in the future. I don't know exactly when it's going to end up happening, but we're here to converse and give you as much information as we can. So thanks for joining me. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to bid adieu so I can finish everything up that I need to for Legacy of Morgoth. Have a great day, everybody.